So, good morning, everyone. And this morning we're looking at child archetypes. And I'm sure you will discover at least one of these child archetypes that are yours. I'm going to be sharing with you the first one that I've pulled up and an experience that I had that borders on hysterical, really, when you start thinking of the extremes you can go to without even recognizing, oh gosh, this is an archetype. And I've got an unconscious driver here that's an archetype that could really sabotage me and my business and my success moving forward. And I didn't have a clue how powerful it was. So I'm going to start the presentation. We've done our introductions. So archetypes, when I was first introduced to this, I thought he was bordering on the tarot card experience because I bought a box of these cards and I was thinking, is it something magical that you do with these cards? And couldn't be further from the truth, really. So they're universal inborn models of distinct aspects of identity and personality that play a role in influencing human behavior. Therefore, it influences your behavior. And those who are familiar with Carl Jung probably are familiar with the fact that he worked a lot with archetypes. So they're a really powerful force and deeply embedded in psychology and psychiatry. So we're going to be looking at some child archetypes. There are lots of archetypes, so perhaps when we have a gap in the program in the future, I can slot in some more archetypes. We've already talked about somebody realizes they've got almost like a judge that's part of an archetype. So let's explore, and perhaps there's going to be a child archetype that you'll start recognizing for yourself. So when we start looking at the child archetypes, obviously they're all to do with this child nature that we all have, and looking at aspects then of this child nature and how it plays out or how we recognize it. It could be how we ignore it. I would always say ignore your child archetype at your peril, because it's going to be there kicking and screaming and wanting to be heard in some shape or form. So the first one we're going to go into is I purposefully put this one as the first one because this is one I recognized. It must have been about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I didn't realize just how strong it was. And sometimes it's only when something almost like emerges up within you do you think, wow, I didn't realize that was going on. And that's what it feels like when you almost bump into a child archetype. So I've got the archetype, the orphan child. And so this is how it played out in my life. So when I was growing up as a little girl, I truly believe I was adopted. I truly believe. I used to say to myself, my real parents are going to turn up any day and they're going to take me away from this, because I'm sure these people that are my mother, they say they're my mother and my father, but they aren't very smart. Yeah. I realized I was a smart kid and I was thinking, they aren't as smart as me. I'm sure my real parents are going to turn up, and they're going to turn up and take me away in a big car, because we didn't have a car, to turn up and take me in a big car, and they're going to take me to a really lovely house, probably in the country somewhere. And I'm going to have lots of brothers and sisters, and these people are going to be so intelligent, and they're going to play music, and all this stuff was all going on in my head as a child. This was all sort of make believe of the orphan child. But I recognize as a kid growing up, because I was on the autistic spectrum and because I was super bright, I very much felt isolated and in effect then abandoned and felt neglected because of just how bright I was. My mother went back to work, working full time, training to be a nurse. And what that brought up in me is this feeling of being unwanted. So I didn't realize the experience that I had as a child would feed into these archetypes as well. So the positive aspects of this is that I was very resilient as a kid, independent, loads of empathy for other people who suffer, and loads of self-resilience and inner strength. All those things entrepreneurs need, yeah? So I had lots of positive aspects, but inside my gut, as it were, there was all these feelings of isolation, abandonment, and neglect, and feeling unwanted. So the orphan child goes alongside the adopted child, yeah? So you can see there the challenges. So this is how it plays out, okay? So and it's really good to actually play it forward in an experience of something that happened. So when I meet people, I think I'm looking for them to adopt me. And I'm still learning this because this has only rumbled in the last few weeks, yeah? So when I meet people, I try and be almost like a really close friend straight away, yeah? Because psychologically, my kid is saying, this is who you belong with, yeah? And now I realize why I get married too soon to guys, yeah? Because I'm thinking I'm looking for them to adopt me, to take me on, yeah? As opposed to feeling really comfortable in my own skin, in my own shoes, and to be able to sit back in a relationship for a long time. So an orphan child stroke adopted child wants to go in there straight away and be adopted by that person, by their family, by everything there is about that person, okay? And even if you have a friend for a very long time, yeah, it doesn't mean they've adopted you. Yeah, they haven't taken on the orphan child. So just recently, I had a friend, a very long-standing friend, and she cancelled out on me twice. Well, that was enough for me for the orphan child to kick in, yeah? Because I felt, oh, you've abandoned me. I feel isolated. I thought you'd adopted me. And I heard myself say it. And as soon as I said, I said to myself, I thought she'd adopted me. I thought I was part of the family, yeah? No, I was a friend. I was outside of the family. And if this person cancels for something that's going on in her family, I don't need to feel abandoned, isolated, and neglected, and rejected, and not wanted. So it's really good to almost understand almost like the child needs that are playing out, and how you will respond to this in a really clumsy way unless you can work through these feelings yourself and know when they come up, just to be kind to yourself and talk to yourself and be graceful for yourself. Because after all, you would probably be very kind and graceful with somebody else, but sometimes we forget to be that way with ourselves and can end up just getting angry. Yeah. And so I've been working on this for about 3 weeks, and on Friday I was coaching somebody who had an orphan child stroke adopted child, yeah? And it was a lot easier to see the stuff going on in them than it was in me. And as soon as I saw this person almost like being really angry and slagging this person off because their coach, I was holding space for them, and they said, you know, their coach didn't love them, didn't care for them, and all this stuff started coming up. And I was thinking, oh, they've got an awful child. They want to be adopted by their trainer, their coach. And they kept getting more and more and more and more and more angry. And in the end, I had to say to the person, oh, I think you're acting like beetroot. You're merging with this other person, where really you should be holding back because you're just blending into them, and you think your needs, this person should be giving you, but those needs are not to be met by that person. They're a coach and a trainer in a professional capacity. They don't need to love you, yeah? And when they move away from you, they are not abandoning you. They're in business with you, and they're just doing the something else. So it's a really interesting archetype. As I said, you know, I've only bumped into this in the last week, so I'm still getting to know my full reactionary menu, as it were, to this when things turn up. So could you put a sort of hands up if you feel as though you've got an orphaned or adopted child? Sangeeta, would you like to add on this?
Oh my God, that just hit home, you know. And it's like, but you know what you said, that you recognize so much in the other person. And I feel that during my journey, when I started to work on myself like 14, 15 years ago, it was like people were coming to me, mirroring me, and showing me what I didn't like. And when I took time to reflect on me, I was saying, oh my God, how and where I behave like that. So people are coming to you right now because you needed to learn and grow. And I talked about the abandonment wound I had. And it is like I connect with people so deeply. But now I'm learning that, yes, I'm connecting to other people deeply because I'm an empath. Yeah, I connect with other people. But I'm learning to say it's okay for me not to be all in. It's difficult. It's really difficult, but it's okay because I started to love myself. So when we love ourselves, we don't need to be in somebody else's life or attached too much. But I could 100% resonate with that, how I felt when I was a child. No wonder you and me connected. We recognize the child in each other.
Sangeeta and I met in a swimming pool, yeah, and then met in a restaurant where Sangeeta couldn't get a seat at a table, and I automatically said to the guy, "I've booked a table for two, even though I booked it for one." And Sangeeta and I have been sort of bonded ever since, really. And that's what it feels like. You think you're bonded, yeah, especially when you meet somebody with the same archetype, yeah. So, Lynn, you put your hand up as well. Would you like to share?
Yeah, it's not one that I've seen before, but as it came up on the screen, it kind of like whopped me in the chest. Um, but yeah, I relate to looking for that connection and actually needing to be mothered. So looking for my friends to be a part of their family. So I very quickly made myself a part of everybody's family. Um, yeah, that's kind of smacked me in the face a little bit.
And I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, it's just knowing what
Mm,
you do.
yeah.
And so I'm like Lynn, I'm very much all in with a person. I want to know everything about them, their home, their family, their kids, their stories, their everything. Yeah. And you can imagine if somebody is a bit aloof, they probably think, gosh, this person's like a tablecloth. They're smothering me. They're just putting a tablecloth over me and sort of scooping me up. Yeah. So it's a really, really interesting archetype. Did anyone else want to refer to this, or should we move on to the next one? We'll get on to the next.
I I at first, so when we started chatting, Cheryl, I brought up the child archetypes and I was toggling between this one and wounded after a childhood experience when my family broke up when I was 9. So I went from perfect world to mum working, dad gone, brother gone, very different life. And when I reflect on my relationships after that point, yeah, very much relate to a lot of the things that you were saying. All of my relationships are long-standing, and I describe my friends as my family I chose.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it really resonates with me. And I've just embarked on a personal journey to think about the connections between my emotional and mental health with my physical health, because I keep getting physical triggers and I'm listening to my body and thinking there's something going on. I need to dig into that a bit more.
And going back, before I move on from this slide, going back to the person I was coaching, because you started mentioning health then and energy. This person felt they were almost like on chakra 12, 13 and off the planet, yeah? Where in reality they were in chakra 1. They were in chakra 1 because they had only just realized they hadn't been looking after themselves. They hadn't done the baseline pieces of looking after oneself, yeah? And so, and it's really interesting when you start pulling in a number of child archetypes, you can see why some people, including myself, get tripped up by the archetypes, yeah? And we almost think we're further advanced than we are, because there's some small things that you think, gosh, am I really looking after myself? What more can I be doing to look after myself at a base level? So I'm going to move on to the next one.
Can I say something, Cheryl? What you said, it just really made sense. It's not that when people are working and they're not connected to higher chakras, it's like base chakra is all about safety, isn't it?
Yeah.
So safety as a childhood, if you don't feel safe, what we end up doing is we end up ignoring there, because we don't want to go there because it's pain there. So we rather, and if you stay in higher chakras, it feels good because you're connecting to source, you're connecting to other people. So you love being there. But when somebody brings you down, it means, yes, you have ignored yourself, and we need to look at that. So they definitely have a knowledge, higher knowledge or different knowledge. But what they need to do is, like you said, foundation, base. When we start looking after the root, then we can flourish lots more.
It's almost like, I think of the chakras almost like, if you are choosing to be up in the very high chakras, well, it's just a head thing, because in reality it needs to be based on a foundation.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just, going out and flying every day as opposed to building a house. You need just be able to look after yourself, pay your bills, look after eating right, and there's so many foundational pieces in just the base chakra. And I think that it's almost like a snobbery, people are afraid to say, oh, I'm only dealing with chakra 1, 2, and 3, because and people look at them and say, oh, you're only on chakra 1, and it's almost like as though there's something wrong with you, you should be in a higher chakra. But we can revisit all the chakras and go back
Absolutely.
there and put perhaps better living practices in place. So moving on. Okay, so the innocent child chakra, purity, naivety, optimism, often seen as the aspect of ourselves that trusts the world and believes in the goodness of others. The positive aspects bring joy, hope, and a sense of wonder, encourage us to see the world through fresh eyes and maintain a positive outlook, and can lead to a denial of harsh realities. Sangeeta, I see you very much as an innocent child.
I was thinking, why is that I can relate to? Since I was, and I think a lot of people have, even my children say, Mom, you're very naive. Why is that you feel that everybody's nice? I said, I feel so good, I think everybody has some niceness in it. So I tell them, it's not that I have seen darkness like no one else have, but I still prefer to trust people, because I think there's part of God in each of us. This part of sources, and when I am joyful and hopeful, and I go in the world with a sense of wonder, because wherever I go in, whichever program I'm learning or something, a lot of people I see around me thinking they know a lot, and I just go in there and saying, well, actually I don't know anything. Let's open up and learn. But I prefer to be like a child, and I feel that purity in my heart. But sometimes people have taken advantage of me in that sense, because she doesn't know anything. We can make fool of her. And I'm watching them and saying, okay, when are you going to change? When are you going to show me your good side? But like, sometimes it doesn't come. So I like to be like a innocent child, but sometimes people have shaken me up saying no.
Wonderful. Can anyone else connect with having that lovely innocent child wonder? Yeah, Fiona, would you like to tell us more about that?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Because I've been having some techie issues. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool. I think a part of me is like this, and definitely a default position for me. I still often refer to myself as childish, and I enjoy things. I enjoy little things in life, and I enjoy celebrating little things, silly things like I always take a picture of my walk with my dog every day. However, I think being a journalist brings you up short with things like this. So I would not say that I deny harsh realities or being overly trusting, because I have met in my career some very nasty people, and probably 2 or 3 that I would actually class as evil. Not many, but where I think there is something in them that's almost, I hesitate to say this because you'll think I'm really woo-woo, but almost like demonic. I mean, I've interviewed murderers. So I suppose my experience is somewhat extreme to many people. But I think that life has taken that sense of wonder and just said to me, sometimes you need to take a pause and you need to just take a bit of time around anyone where that gut feeling or that little voice says, be careful, or as I've got, or this, I don't know if you can see, red flag, red flag. So I think if I hadn't been a journalist, though, my experience might have been a bit different.
And sometimes in business, we never expect certain people to do certain things, and they take you back. I've always got used to the patterns now. So when we used to have the big meetings in Cardiff, we used to have about 50 or 60 people in a room in Cardiff. Do you remember those big meetings we used to have, Fiona? I always knew when people arrived at the door without any money, they would never ever pay to come in. So I always got to the extent of saying to them, well, there's a cash till. I would tell them where the nearest cash till it was, and for them to go and get money from the cash till to pay to come through the door. Because 100% of people who turned up at an event with no money to pay would never pay for their ticket. So sometimes it's almost, you want to be innocent and to ride with people and give people the benefit of the doubt. But I think sometimes you've got to learn from just past experience and say, hang on, there's a pattern here, and trust the pattern as opposed to keep going back to being an innocent child with people. I don't know if people can give us an example in business, perhaps, where they've just been totally innocent a lot of the time and then got tripped up. Can anyone else give us an example here of getting tripped up by somebody, but perhaps not paying an invoice or something like that? Mandy, would you like to share?
Yeah, that immediately springs to mind because I am a very trusting person, and you'd think I'd know better, Cheryl, having managed a debt collection department, that some people don't pay. I've only had a couple of examples in 2.5 years. One person booked, failed to show up and failed to pay the invoice she hadn't cancelled or rearranged. And I gave up on that invoice in the end. And I've had one repeat client who consistently failed to pay on time. So I had to introduce a late cancellation fee. And since I've done that, they've paid on time.
And there can be some quite dramatic ones. I'm sure Fiona will remember this person. We thought she was setting up a cleaning business, a franchise cleaning business. And she wanted to join Iron Woman, but I got this gut feeling she didn't really suit Iron Woman. I don't know why I had this gut feeling. And I asked somebody in the office, because we had an office in Cardiff, just to watch this person on social media. So this person then said, she's put me in a private chat room. And I said, well, can you just screenshot everything that's happening in the private chat room? And she said, she's now offered me a business opportunity. And I said, oh, what is the business opportunity? She said, it's to come along to her first Iron Woman launch. And I said, how can she be running an Iron Woman group and running a launch? And she was actively trying to sell this person tickets to her launch and so many coaching sessions in advance. Yeah. So we just screenshot everything and then asked her to come into the office. Yeah. So she came into the office. But before she came into the office, we did a bit of background research, and this person had come to the UK because she'd been more or less thrown out of her own country because she'd been putting it out there that she was giving people either jobs or business opportunities, and when they parted with their money, all she gave them was a bucket and some leaflets. Do you remember this person, Fiona?
I do remember exactly who that person was, and I did challenge that person around messages sent to me, and she threatened me with a baseball bat, which I didn't, which sounds ridiculous. She physically didn't live close to me. But I don't know what ladies you found. I find that I've made some very, very close female friends, and most people are very professional in business. But I call them bitches and witches. The worst people I've ever encountered in business who've been not very nice people or downright liars, apart from 2 instances, have been women. That has been my experience. And I'm very wary now of things like mates rates, people doing you a favor, asking, can I just? That's a favorite one. Can you just? I've got very good at saying, really happy to help you with this, but there will be a cost. What's your budget? And things like that around women in business, particularly. I haven't found it so much with men. Occasionally, I can think probably 2 occasions, who seem to understand that if they're dealing with you professionally, they will have to pay. But I mean, I don't know if ladies, you've had experiences like that, but I found the extremes with women have been more extreme.
And that particular person could just lie to your face, because as soon as we had her in the office and told her what we'd discovered, she said, no, 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 no. And luckily we had yes, 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 lots of information that we could evidence everything with. So yeah, so be aware of, if you're running an innocent child, to cover your back, just cover your back. Right, moving on to the next one. So the magical child, again, you know, start thinking about how the magical child can add such value into your imagination, creating ideas, creating new products, creating new ways of taking your products to the market. Is there a magical side to your thinking that perhaps you've hidden? It's an amazing archetype to have. I know I've got a magical child in there. You know, I was very creative as a child. And when I was in fashion design, we kept a Monday just for doing magical child stuff. So on a Monday was all R&D work in the fashion industry. We'd look at the colors, the designs, everything that was happening in the market, and really expanding our thinking on everything. And when you're in fashion or any kind of, you know, innovative, you're taking anything innovative to the market, you need to apportion that time just for magical thinking, just for all that creative thinking to happen, you know. And if you don't apportion the time in day-to-day time, you'll never actually get round to doing it. So I'm sure we have some magical child thinkers amongst us here. Who does magical child stuff? Nobody does magical child. Yes, Sangeeta, what do you do?
I don't want to speak on every child. It's like, I have a bit of every child. No, because what I have found out that, you know, I could create things, I can manifest things, and it's like, again, from the purity of the heart, if I want something for me, I can create it as long as nobody else is connected to me, because my energies are like that. I can create ideas. When I was on radio, I started just with one show, and then I created this idea of Real Woman, and it was like, you know, I don't want any man to be there. I want to express my things. Every time I presented an idea, it just becomes a great idea, but it was coming from a purely that I need to do something like that, you know. So I can see it, but it's about, I think, where I trip, or used to trip, let's rephrase, is the belief in me. You know, not belief in God. So I know miracles are always possible, but belief in myself. And then now I'm looking into that as saying, okay, what I need to heal, because I know I can create whatever I want, but it's just that part which trips me. I want to, you know, be loving to that part of my child.
And thinking about the vision for your business, you know,
Yeah.
having magical thinking in order to think of the broader scope of what you can do. Perhaps even taking yourself out to lunch, just have a thinking space to
Mm.
think about the potential for you and your business in the upcoming year. And Chakra 1 is all about making your vision a reality. But if you don't have a vision, how can you make it a reality?
Reality. Absolutely.
So it's really thinking through, you know, what, you know, I can remember years ago, somebody said to me, you should dream dreams big enough to grow into. Dream dreams big enough to grow into. And that really struck me. And as a child, I used to get up into all sorts of things. I think one of the scariest things for my mother was when she came home and I'd managed to get a twin tub up in my bedroom, a twin tub washing machine up into my bedroom that I wanted to make into a potter's wheel. She wasn't very impressed with that one. You can imagine, I started taking the whole twin tub washing machine apart in my bedroom. She was not amused. And then another time I can remember, this was when I was in school and doing fashion design in school. I walked past the shop in town and I could see one of their dummies in the window they were selling. So I took the dummy home in a taxi from town, and we had so much fun in the house with this dummy, because my grandmother was partially blind and she kept talking to the dummy, and then my mother had enough of that. And even the gas man, he said, "Oh gosh, my perfect woman, naked, and she can't answer back." So this dummy ended up in the loft, and then years later, my father goes up in the loft and is convinced there's a dead body there, and we had so much fun. So yeah, get inspired by the magical child. Perhaps the magical child is hiding in you, yeah, and wants to come out and play. Will you invite it to come out and play? Do you need to invite somebody to come around to play with you to get this magical child working? So I've got a friend coming around because I haven't brought out my sewing machine and my overlocker in about 5 years. And I said, will you come over and play? And we can get them out and do some playing with the sewing machine and the overlocker. So sometimes we just need people to play with. So
Cheryl,
yeah.
do you mind me just sharing something with the ladies that may be helpful? So I've dug my desktop whiteboard back out today because I've been challenged by an existing client to write a new course, and that's quite a lot of work, creative work. So I've got this desktop board because I've got my meetings and my responsibilities listed on the left, things I have to do this week, meetings I've booked. But on the right-hand side today, I've written 5 creative tasks that I'm going to do today. And it's on the board with little stars all around it.
Love it. And what are your creative tasks that you're going to be doing?
So I need to do some research and put in the framework for this PowerPoint presentation. But when I do my training, it's facilitation and I'm all in. So there are aspects of fun. There are things that I make or buy, creative things that my participants get to inspire them and engage them. So I write like little exercises, I write little games and icebreakers. So that's when Mandy becomes really magical. So it's all about this new client and what value I can bring them through my magical child.
And building on that, a thought, well, it's really a memory came to mind. I was asked to go into G's on Caerphilly Road there because they'd had a problem with people not using the security guards on the machines, and it was getting really quite dangerous, and they couldn't work out how to get people to use the guards. And so I used magical thinking. I asked them all to be superheroes and come down to the front and share what the superheroes would do. And so people would be doing the Batman, zip, zap, zop, and Wonder Woman. And people started using the security guards because it was just a fun thing. And when somebody got caught out not using it, they would just speak like, what would Batman say or Wonder Woman say or whatever would say. Hysterical, absolutely hysterical. Moving on to the wounded child, I suppose not such a hysterical archetype. So it's knowing that, we have an aspect to perhaps our lives where the wounded child sits, perhaps has been ignored, perhaps has been supported. So, when we start looking at this description there, these are emotional wounds from childhood, such as a trauma or deep-seated pain, carrying past hurts that can influence adult behavior. And the positive aspect, healing drives growth and fosters compassion and the desire to help others. But it's looking at, how much I think the saddest story I heard over the last weeks was a woman who was starving her baby because she wanted her baby to really experience how she felt as a child. And in order for her to be able to love her, she needed the baby to feel exactly how she felt as a mother with this pain. So almost like playing out her own trauma on her own children. You know, parents who bully their kids because they were bullied, because they just don't know any different. So there's lots of aspects to the wounded child. Would anyone like to share with us perhaps how the wounded child has turned up in their lives, whether it's them or their children? Fiona, were you indicating something then? Yeah?
I think all of us, if we're honest, will have a bit of wounded child.
Yeah.
From my childhood, I had two parents who loved me a lot. So there were no major traumas. But what I did have was being I realise now, an extrovert surrounded by 3 introverts. And that brings up different things in a ton of different ways as you get older, because you never feel like you quite fit in. Yeah, I was loved, which I think is the greatest gift a parent ever gives a child, to know deeply that they are loved and that they are wanted. So I had those things, but I never felt like I quite fit, and that others would often gang up against me, or I would be doing things wrong. So the words I would hear often as a child was things like, don't make a fuss, don't stand out, pride comes before a fall, you should know better. Those kind of things. Oh, yeah, it's easier not to do this. So, and it manifested itself in 100 different ways. Things like at school, I remember one really strong memory of one of my closest friends, and she's a really good friend today. She's a very good singer, songwriter. She always got the lead role in the school plays, and I always wanted to be in the school plays. And I got the lead role one year as Alice in Wonderland. This is a primary school. I got the role, and I was so excited. She made such a fuss and got so upset that she didn't get the lead role that in the end, I gave my lead role to her for that play. And I then became the dormouse in the teapot, if you remember, sort of in the school play. And I always remember looking back and thinking, why did I do that? And it's this whole thing of make life as simple as possible, don't rock the boat, don't cause problems, you know, and I realised that was embedded in me from a child. So I don't know if that is wounded child, but now I tend to kick against that massively, and hopefully broken that circle for my own children. I've got 4 children, stepdaughter and 3 children with Steve, and one is an introvert and the others are not. So I really recognize that now, can really see it clearly.
I think journaling can help a lot because it gives us that time with ourselves to run something through, perhaps that happened yesterday or something you're facing, just to give yourself time to listen to what's going on and then unravel it and perhaps think of different options for it. Or perhaps just accepting, perhaps you need some healing in that area, or just understanding your anger or your grief, or perhaps anxiety being with another person. So Kim, can you relate to this one? I can see you nodding there with some of the things we're talking about.
No, not some. I mean, yeah, obviously everyone does have wounded. There was some issues like Fiona was saying about the way you were treated as a child, and I was quite. I think adults beat stuff out of you. Like I was obviously quite a happy, gregarious child, and I just remember I had an aunt that used to call me Bossy Britches. And as soon as whenever we'd had to go and visit this aunt and my grandmother, it would be, oh, here comes Bossy Britches. And I was only about 3, but you don't, you know, it's like having those adult archetypes that push you down and stop you being who you are. And so I ended up becoming quite a shy child, always feeling like I was the third wheel, the odd one out. You know, in friendship groups, I'd always be the one that was sort of felt left out of things. So I became the strength it gave me is that I learned how to become self-sufficient. But you know, it's interesting, isn't it?
Mhm. And knowing sometimes even the bad stuff makes you resilient as well.
Definitely.
Perhaps to that type of person in the future. I've just got a message come through. So then looking at the divine child, so looking at this child part of you that believes then in the sacred, the divine, the spiritual aspect of the inner child, embodying purity and grace and the sense of being special. Lots of positives there, connecting with their higher purpose, spiritual enlightenment and inner peace, and encouraging a sense of inner worth and the recognition of unique gifts. I think there's one person that came to mind that I've mentored where this was to the extreme, where this person wouldn't get on with actually doing business stuff because they just felt they would ask and it would be given. And, you know, I felt that was very frustrating because I could never get them to do anything because they thought all they had to do was pray on it and it would come. It didn't come because I always believe you've got to do what you've got to do and then the divine does the rest. Yeah, doesn't expect you to sit around watching telly while they're doing all the work. So to me, you know, we co-create. Yeah, we don't sit and wait, we co-create. So yeah, I think again there's a divine child in all of us, you know, that we are going to be asking for support and help in so many divine ways, and then it's looking at what can we do, what can we co-create, as opposed to sit on and wait. So does anyone want to add anything to this?
I had, you know, that innocent child archetype, like, well, we don't have to do anything. We can, and I remember when I learned about law of attraction, I was like, yeah, you just attract everything. And then, you know, I was doing that, like learning new things for a year or two and this and that. And then I came across a teacher who was talking about attraction, what it means. And they said there's a word action in attraction. So you have to take action. I was like, shit, what? Why didn't I know that before? But I could just laugh at myself. It's like, all right, I think I need to do a bit more than that. And I think that's how I feel. But it's like, again, what I think I was sharing something Fiona shared today at LinkedIn, and I then I used to, when I used to find these things, I was like so harsh with me. Oh, you're such an idiot. You're this and that. You're not smart. And then I become like, it's like, no, I have to be really kind to myself. This is the stuff I didn't know. How am I supposed to solve a problem I have never come across? You know, so when I'm learning, so Sidra was one of the teacher I was going for personal development and healing. And she said something very beautiful, which is, I think, in one of the book Conversations with God. So it's okay means, O means observing, K means kindness. So observing kindness, and that is towards yourself. And more I became kind towards myself. I became kind to other people when they were making mistakes or when they were thinking silly things. And I just think, all right, let's go create now. But I remember for a year or two, I was like, nah, I don't have to do anything. I love watching movies. I love listening to music, love cooking. Let's do that. But I did attract a lot of things. But maybe I didn't have any focused goals where I feel I need to take action. But hey, we all learn.
You had a good time. So coming to the conclusion here, perhaps that, you know, there's questions you might want to sort of ask anyone of the group afterwards. It's looking at, you know, that the archetypes offer valuable insights into the different aspects of our psyche and personal development here. And it's understanding the archetypes can help us to navigate our strengths, our weaknesses, our challenges, leading us to greater self-awareness and self-esteem. It's almost like knowing something is coming up and saying, I recognize that, yeah, or thinking, I need some magical time here, or working out, yeah, I want to call in the divine, but I've got to think what I've got to do as part of this process, or feeling, you know, quite down or angry at somebody, thinking, hang on, there's a wounded aspect of my child here showing their faces. Perhaps it's not happy with somebody spoke to you, it's reminded you of how somebody spoke to you, or feeling a particular way. So I'd love to know how you're going to embrace your archetypes going forward. So would you like to share with us now how you're going to, what have you learned, and how you're going to embrace these archetypes going forward for you? Fiona, can we start with you? What light bulbs of learning have you had or revisited, and how would you like to move forward?
I think I've got a bit of magical child, which I wouldn't necessarily immediately pull out of my toolbox because I'm not a maker. I'm not a creator of things with my hands. I never have been. I don't enjoy it or anything like that, but I think I create in other ways. And I'm definitely an ideas person. So I see one thing, I think, oh, it's got media speakers. Oh, I create a media and social diary planner for my clients. And perhaps other people will want to buy it. Yes. So I'm a creator of ideas that I will then try and follow through. The one thing that for someone like me is to recognize these archetypes in others. And that particularly resonates with me, particularly divine child, because I get a lot of men and women who come to me and say, I want you to make me visible, because they have this great mission in life without any sense of reality whatsoever. With that, and how do you deal with that kindly when someone comes to you and they're coming from a good place, they want to impact the world, they want to, I hear this a lot, they want to expand their reach. And then you feel like you're pouring cold water over them, because you have to say, well, how much money are you spared to spend on that? Or, someone like me, I'm very practical. So I'm like, is this? And how do you do that with kindness in order for them to go away and think, actually, I need to think this, because this whole thing of spirituality, mission, and being divine, but unwillingness to actually take any action at all, or to do stuff, or to devote time or money to achieving that thing, is something I come across probably on an almost weekly basis. And it can waste a lot of my time, if I'm honest. So how do I do that kindly? So that's the thing that I'm thinking as we come to the end of this session.
So can anyone offer some advice here to Fiona, how she could perhaps handle that? Because that's quite a tricky one, isn't it? A real tricky one.
Well, I feel if I go to somebody and they think it's totally woo-woo idea and it's this and that, and I would use that kind of language, what you're saying, I would like somebody to say, yeah, your ideas are great. We can see it'll make change, but how about we can work together to make it practical? So ideas are all in our mind. Yeah, it's not. So again, what we were talking about, it's higher chakras, and those ideas are channeled to us for a reason. But then how to ground them and how to make them practical and then take them out in the world, maybe that's probably where people are coming to you and say, okay, we like that, let's work together, but this is the cost of it and this is the thing. And then you send them back thinking about it. And if they really want to bring that idea in the world, they'll be guided to take next step. And if they don't, that's okay, you have done your job. You can just say, okay, you can be really honest and kind and say, I like that idea, or I don't think it'll work, or maybe you have to mold this idea a little bit to be able to go in mainstream of idea. And then you have done your part, and what they do or not do is not your responsibility, but it's like sometimes I come across people very harsh. Oh, that's rubbish, I don't know, who wants that? I was like, you have no idea, maybe I have channeled that idea for a reason. And those people, after 2 years, when I have done those ideas, they think, actually, that was brilliant idea, and so it's about learning that if somebody has some idea or saying it, there's a reason why they're saying it, but maybe they have no idea how to bring it practically, and that's where you come and you can help them. But then if they don't take that step, they're not prepared to work hard or spend money, then they go their way.
Thank you.
I hope that helps.
Yes.
And a little tip that I'd like to share. When I was working funded by Welsh Government in the universities, and I had to spot business ideas, and I had a budget to put marketing money behind the business ideas, a little trick that I'd learned from eye elicitation in NLP was to watch the eyes. And so retrieval is to the left and creation is to the right. And so I used to watch somebody's eyes to see how much of this idea they'd thought through and how much of the idea they were creating on their feet. And it was really interesting just watching their eyes and watching them speaking, and to really, assess, how well is this idea shaped, formed, and is it ready to go to market, just by watching those eyes. So perhaps you can experiment with that. We're going to come to you now, Kim. What have you got from this session? How might you put any of this archetype stuff to work?
It was a really nice reminder of some of the work I've done in the past, actually, as well. I dug out my archetype cards while we were going through it, and I remember that the three main child archetypes I probably present most, even though there's some of everyone, is divine, magical, and eternal child, which you didn't talk about that one so much, but eternal child is this feeling of not wanting to grow up. And that expresses in my health business in a way. It's really interesting because I was putting two and two together. Like when my parents were elderly, they had every common disease known to man. My mum had cancer and diabetes. My dad had high blood pressure, strokes, and dementia. And I nursed them through their ill health. And I just thought, that was when my eternal child really stamped her foot down and said, I do not want to age like they do, and I want to help other people not age like that as well. And that set me off on a real trajectory. And it plays out sometimes where when I see people sat in victim mode or complaining but not wanting to do anything about it, it really irritates me, because I feel like, come on, you're so much
You want to
better
shake
than
them.
you are. And I have this sort of magical belief that their body can transform into anything they want it to be. So, and the magical one as well, because I bought my house through the whole magical world, because I believe I've got a Welsh leprechaun living in my garden, in the little house that's built in the wall. And, I create a whole fantasy about that. So, but yes, where does it manifest in terms of work? Well, self-responsibility. I think my eternal child manifests in sometimes there's certain aspects where I need to grow up a bit more and not be the princess waiting to be rescued, but actually I can rescue myself. And procrastination pops in as well under all of that. So yeah, you can see how the shadow side of all of those beautiful, magical, divine things can crop up, and you have to kind of adjust those. So, but I it was really interesting. Thank you.
And Sangeeta, over to you. What have you got from this?
I think I learned a lot because I didn't know any of them, and I was like, tick. I think I can connect to that tick. I was like, no, that's not fair, Cheryl. How can I connect to all of them? But I think one wounded child I really connected to, because I had lots of wounds. You know a little bit of my stories, but what I always looked at is, there's two sides of me. Is one magical and doesn't want to do the work and feel that divine is providing for me. Another one, very practical side of me, where I think I need to take care of that. So if I'm feeling wounded, if I'm feeling victimized, I stayed there a lot of my life. But the day I knew that I have the power to create change, I took that like that. And I said, okay, because I remember reading that book, very first book that really shifted me is The Power of Your Emotions. And I have always been very, very emotional. And then I realized the power. I was creating that victimization. Yes, things went wrong. Yes, things happened in my life, but I can do something about it. And that day I wore that hat and saying, whatever comes my way, even like when my husband was ill, that was my biggest challenge in my life. And I was told that my husband has less than 6 months to live. I mean, how do I deal with that? But 10 years of that practical things, which I said, I cannot change the outcome, what the doctor is saying, but how I go about it, holding space for him and my children and be in my strength, doing things day in, day out, practically to make sure that everything is okay and stand. That gave me that practical side of me in saying, I can face my fear. I don't sit in the delusion of that thing. And I said, okay, divine has brought that challenge in my life for a reason. And I might not know the reason, but I know how to get through it. So I'll ask divine for strength every single day. And what do I need to do? Do I need to sit and pray for half an hour? Because I can't afford more than that, you know? But then I need to be 23 hours or 23 hours and 30 minutes. I have to be doing things practical. But that showed me a lot of strength in me. So yeah, I can connect with Lord, but most of my life, till I was 40, I was so much in my wounded child, feeling victimized, feeling everybody has, nasty things. But then I used to swap to magical child and divine child. So yeah, but it was so helpful today. I think I got to know myself a lot more and love connecting with my magical child I'm going to create.
Lovely. Thank you, Sangeet. Mandy, over to you. What have you learned from today about yourself, and how might you put it to work?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I love seeing the ladies sparkle as they get their ideas from this session. And like Fiona, I recognise that my creativity is something that brings me joy and growth. And because of the nature of my work, helping people with practical things about their work, I can get a bit bogged down. I'm a bit of a control freak. I like everything to be perfect and done in the right order, and that can stifle creativity. So I think I'm going to find a new balance where that creativity can dominate my day, be my life frog that I do before I do all the boring stuff. And, Cheryl, I'm thinking about that journal. We talked about that book that I was so excited about creating, and I'm ashamed to admit I've done nothing with that idea. And I need to, because that will help me grow. And it will help other people grow too. So yeah, I'm going to go back to magical and drop the limiting beliefs, really, that if I write and launch a book, no one will buy it. And these new courses, I've got the tried and tested courses that people book and pay me for. But when this organization asked me to create something new, I was excited, not only to write that course, but it's kind of lit this fuse to this whole firework display where I'm thinking, oh, I could write even more, and I can reach out to other people with the new course that I'm writing, and it kind of makes things bigger and more exciting for me. So yeah, creative Mandy, magic Mandy is back in the house.
Way, well done. So thank you everyone for jumping in this morning to explore some of the child archetypes. Yes, being quite, it's really reflective, isn't it? You almost hear other people's stories and you can think, oh, I've got a bit of that and I've got a bit of that, and oh, that's really interesting. I should be doing more of that, and where did that part of me go? Yeah, really exciting. So thank you all for coming out to play with the archetypes this morning, and good luck going forward playing with them in your life, and look forward to seeing you next Monday at 11 o'clock or next week's Iron Woman Hour. So have a great week, everyone, and look forward to seeing you soon. Okay.
Take care.
Lovely to
Bye.
see you all. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
You and me left.